And this is the moment you've all been waiting for. It's Shane Conter, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Justice League. So is Shane gonna gush all over this film and fanboy, or is Shane gonna shit all over this film because it's a piece of crap? Neither of those things. Kind of in the middle. Thought this movie was fine, and I enjoyed it. So we're gonna talk about it. Now, this was directed by Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon, because you can tell, and I'm pretty sure he reshot the majority of this movie, so people telling me that Zack Snyder only directed this is full of crap. Sorry. But in terms of this story, not super interesting story, and not super well handled story. This film's very rushed. The mandate from Warner Brothers saying this film had to be 2 hours actually hurt it. Yeah, it did. And not to make too many comparisons, but you have Batman v Superman, which is like 2.5 hours, 3 hours if you have that extended cut, which is so much better, you should check it out. 3 hours of trying to balance everything, which had too much crap in it. Justice League doesn't have too much crap in it. It's trying to build something, and you make it an hour shorter. It didn't work out very well. Look at the Avengers, which first off, I'm not here to Marvel fanboy and like compare them and be like, Marvel's so much better. But they were already set up characters. They still had 2 hours and 20 minutes to flesh out a whole story and build relationships and everything. This film did not. We got really rushed introductions to some characters, and it's just not well balanced, and it's not well paced because you feel like you're running through everything. I would consider it what I call child's pace. It's when you have a kid's film where it's like it runs through the whole entire film because you know these kids can't keep attention and this film isn't that great. Kind of felt like that because everything feels so rushed. And the tone is definitely a lighter tone and a jauntingly tone, which I don't know how I feel a lot of it, because I'm going to make an interesting comparison here. Any of our pro wrestling fans out there watching, Superman is John Cena. And it's really funny because wrestling fans always compare John Cena to Superman, but it's basically, oh, I'm sorry if I spoil that Superman's in this movie. Yeah, Superman's in this movie. Worst kept secret ever. But Superman has a smile on his face, doesn't take anything seriously, and just beats the shit out of people. With like, and it's like, you spend all of Batman v Superman setting up that he's vulnerable, and you kill him, and then you bring him back, and he's like God mode, and like, psh, you have no chance, I win. And it's just like, so tonal issues, I feel like it lost some of the weight. And the thing is, I'm not somebody that's like, DC movies need to have more humor because they're super dark. It's okay if it's dark. Like, okay, if it works and it's well done, it's okay to be dark. This film goes way too opposite the other end. It kind of loses some of its heft, and it's like what made the other DCEU films what they were. It kind of like loses that gravity and sense of seriousness that it had, and probably because Joss Whedon. But it feels really, totally, I wasn't the hugest fan of it. And then emotionally, did I feel emotionally invested at any point in this movie? A couple of character interactions. Those are basically the only things that made me feel anything. And the funniest thing is, the scene that I had the most feelings towards was a scene where Ma Kent and Lois Lane are sitting in a coffee break room and just chatting. And it's like, that's acting right there. You go, Diane Keaton and Diane Lane, sorry, and Lois Lane. I'm keeping this in now. It's actually really stupid. Diane Lane and Amy Adams. and I'll get to them in a second, but they had that really great scene and you really felt a lot. Now, the CGI in this film was bad. This movie cost so much money. Why does your movie look like a video game? Why does Steppenwolf look like a giant CGI blob monster? Didn't you learn from Doomsday? No, they didn't. So, and I was really disappointed by the CGI because it's like, you should be so much better. And none of this world looks real because it's just one CGI blob. And it's like, why can't you just make a set? For once, maybe. The cinematography by Fabian Wagner, I thought that some of the shots were really cool, but honestly the CGI was so distracting in this film. Like, it kind of messes with the lighting and everything, and just things just don't look right. This film doesn't feel as beautiful as a Zack Snyder film usually does, because usually they do look beautiful. They do, and I'm not going to take that away from Zack Snyder, but this film seems a little drab and not as interesting or cool looking as a usual Zack Snyder film. Now, in terms of the action, there are some really cool action sequences, especially with Wonder Woman. She gets some cool things, and I really enjoy how they do Flash in this film. But there's one particular scene at the beginning of this film, and not to go off too much of a tangent, but this scene kind of encompasses how choppily together this film is. Batman's trying to fight a parademon, and it feels so choppily edited. Can't tell what's going on in the fight, and then the dialogue is so choppy and awkward. I'm like, who wrote this? And then segueing nicely into the writing, because this is written by Chris Terrio, and then Joss Whedon definitely came on and rewrote a ton of stuff. And you could tell when Joss Whedon came in and rewrote some stuff. In terms of the story, it's very straightforward and the story. It's Steppenwolf, who is a terrible villain, just to say, very boring, doesn't really work for me. And it's just like, he's a giant CGI blob. And he shows up, he needs to collect these 3 mother boxes, so he needs to steal all 3 of them and then try to blow up the world, or turn it into... He's trying to turn it into Apocalypse, I guess, or something or other. I'm surprised there wasn't a sky beam in this. But the story's not super interesting. It's mostly, there's something that going on because we need to get the Justice League together. And they're trying to balance so many things, and it just doesn't work out very well. And in terms of the characters, all the Justice League members, I think, get good things to work with. But Batman's slightly less interesting in this film than he was in Batman v Superman, but he does get some great moments with Wonder Woman, and when they're together, they're fantastic. And Wonder Woman's the real standout of this film. I think she gets a lot to do, and I think it's very meaningful what she goes through. Out of the new people, Flash is amazing. I love him, and I can't wait to see a Flash movie and see him interact with the Justice League more. Superman's like bland as hell and not interesting. And then Aquaman, it could be a really cool character, and I enjoyed him for what he did in this film, but I feel like he was missing a lot out of what was setting him up. And from what I heard, Jason Momoa was like, they cut tons of my stuff, and it's like, that's disappointing. And then Cyborg, very tragic character, could have done more with them. He kind of is just like, I show up and take over machines and computers and stuff, blah 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 blah. He feels more like a plot device than an actual character, and that's really disappointing. But in terms of the dialogue, there's some great dialogue. There's some great conversations between characters. A lot of it's Batman and Wonder Woman. Any interactions Alfred has with Batman or Wonder Woman's fantastic. I love Alfred in these DCEU movies. Jeremy Irons is fantastic. But when Flash interacts basically with anybody, it's great. Aquaman, between his like, yeah, and stuff like that, he does get some cool lines and stuff like that. And there's a few other interactions, like with Commissioner Gordon in the Justice League, and like I mentioned before, when Ma Kent and Lois Lane, that's a great interaction. I really enjoyed that writing. But a lot of it, the other parts, there's a lot of stilted dialogue and Steppenwolf trying to like monologue to him, like monologue to the audience basically, and just be like, "I'm evil." Kieran Hines does his best with it, but it's not super great because it's like there's not much they give him to do, which is really disappointing. The music done by Danny Elfman, was not expecting that. I was really disappointed when they fired Junkie XL from this film. And Danny Elfman does a really good job. I actually love the score in this film, and he really elevates a lot of the sequences. His little, I guess, theme that he does for Flash when he's in like Flash mode, I think that's really great, and that was something that really stuck out to me. I think Danny Elfman did a fantastic job making the score of this film. And now to the acting. Real standouts are Gal Gadot and Ezra Miller. I think they did fantastic jobs. They get to really shine in this film. Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, and Jason Momoa do really good jobs with what they're given. Ray Fisher was not a fan of as Cyborg. Felt very bland and not interesting, and I don't know if it's because you're supposed to be acting like a robot, but it really didn't work for me. Amber Heard pops up for like 2 seconds and is like awful. I'm like, what are you doing here? And then there's a list of people that I'm going to read here, and these are people that did fantastic jobs but were completely wasted. Amy Adams, Diane Lane, Jeremy Irons, J.K. Simmons, Kieran Hines, Connie Nielsen, coming back from Wonder Woman, and Joe Morton from T2 Judgment Day. That guy, as Cyborg's dad, is in it for a tiny bit and does a really good job, and it's just like, just wasted. And another one that I forgot to write down, but just remember, Billy Crudup. Really liked him in his tiny ass screen time in this film as Barry Allen's dad, and he does a really good job of selling his like maybe 40 seconds of screen time. This film overall, my it factor of this film, it's a mixed bag of traits that add up to fine. And I think I would watch it again. It's kind of, honestly, it's an easy watch, which is funny because like DC usually prides itself on being serious and like this is going to be emotionally dark and like hard to. It just felt a lot of fluff, honestly, and which is funny because that's usually what people say about Marvel movies. But I guess Marvel knows how to fluff better. So I'm going to give Justice League a C.